Welcome to the Primo's Musings podcast.
Good evening. Good evening, Dan. How are you doing?
Good evening. Doing great.
All right, back from pickle, but I think what we just saw today between Alcaraz and Sinner was an instant classic on the Parisian clay. Just a quick recap, and then I'll give you the floor. So this match went 5 sets, 5 hours and 29 minutes to be exact. They battled through the longest men's singles finals in the Open history. Sinner had 3 match points. We'll get to it at some point, but Carlos now has 5-0 record in major finals at the young age of 22. Um, Came down from 2 sets down. So we'll get down to each and every set maybe, but I wanted to give you the floor and kind of talk about what you saw when you started watching it after your golf.
Yeah. No, I got home and wasn't sure if I was going to start watching it from the beginning. Figured it was only going to be a couple hours into the match by the time I got home, which it was. It was got home a little right before noon, and so it was Sinner up 2 sets to love at that point, though 6-4 and 7-6, and just starting the third set. Started watching at that point. So I haven't had a chance to watch the first few sets, but like I mentioned to you, I'm sure the quality from what I've heard was just as great during the first 2 sets as it was throughout the final three. And yeah, I mean, like you said, it was one of the it's hard to say right now. Obviously, all the analysts and including us are all saying that it's one of the all-time greatest matches, and it's very well might be. Number one versus number two. It went 5.5 hours, 5 sets, down 2 sets to love, saving. Carlos saved 3 match points. So when you look at all of that, maybe it was one of the greatest matches, but it could also just be a recency bias thing. We see an amazing match, we say it's one of the greatest, but let's just for all intents and purposes say it was right now one of the greatest because the just the quality that I think what sets it apart, from what I can remember this match versus any other match is just the quality and the effort of every single point. How hard the two players were hitting the ball back and forth. We just don't see that kind of quality with rallies, 15, 20 shots back and forth with balls coming at each other, 90 to 100 miles per hour, forehands and backhands, back and forth, equal power on the forehand and backhand side, players being, run into a corner and then, on defense and then turning it back into offense. And like I said, I think just the overall quality and the high level of play for all 5 sets really set it apart. And then, like you mentioned, we have the drama of Carlos down 5-3, serving that three. He was serving 3-5, love 40 in the fourth set, down 2 sets to 1. 3 championship points against him, and he saved each of those, and then went on to go up 6-5 in that set. And then Sinner held serve and went to a tiebreak, in which Carlos then won relatively easily, forcing a fifth set. And we thought maybe fatigue would be an issue in that fifth set with Sinner because he's been out for on suspension for 3 months, and this is the first second tournament he's played since coming back. So we weren't sure what his fatigue and energy and fitness level were going to be going into that fifth set. And early on, Carlos went up a break, and I remember there was a drop shot which Sinner came up a little lame chasing, and we weren't sure if it was cramping or if he had tweaked a hamstring or some kind of muscle. He seemed to be a little gimpy for a few points, but then once he kind of fought through that for a few points, he got right back to his high level. He was down a break. Carlos serving for the match, and then Sinner breaks him and goes up 6-5, and then Carlos, next thing you know, holds serve, and we go to a 10-point tiebreaker, which you pointed out to me. I thought it was a 7-pointer at the time. I wasn't sure what to expect. And then Carlos just played a masterful tiebreaker, just amazing points. He got up to a 7-0 lead, was going to maybe, bagel Sinner there, but Sinner got a few points. Carlos won in relatively easy fashion in that fifth set tiebreak. I think 10-2, I believe, was the final score in that tiebreak, possibly 10-3. So my impressions were basically just the quality of every single point back and forth. Carlos just, I mean, it's just amazing. Well, amazing what both of them can do just from in like right around the baseline. There, when we watched Zverev a few days ago against Novak, we saw how far back Zverev plays in order to generate the pace and generate his shots. But these guys, the way they can just use their wrist and forearms just to flick these backhands and forehands down the line, cross court, just you just don't know where it's going, and just the speed they generate. It's just thrilling. The only thing I would like to have seen a little more is you just don't not much net play. Unfortunately, it was a baseline battle the whole time. I thought maybe one thing Sinner needed to do to change things around was try to come in behind some of those shots, because he just Carlos was just counterpunching everything back, and I mean so was Sinner, but if maybe he could get to net on a few of those deep balls that Carlos was playing defense on and take him in the air and end the point early and just put it away, that might have been to his advantage. But that'll probably come with time as he matures. He's only 23 and 22, so
Yeah.
I'm sure that's when we see Sinner 2.0, as he enters the next stage of his career in a few years. I'm sure once he develops that net game and the ability to come in behind it more confidently, and then it's just going to be lights out. On both players' behalves. So that was kind of my summary, my impressions. I'll throw it back to you to kind of talk about things a little bit now.
Yeah, I think you already talked about the physical nature of the play with both of them. Staying on the court for 5 hours and 30 minutes. In fact, I actually texted one of my friends who was a big baseball fan, and I said, this, I think Marty Fish actually said something about, I don't care what sport it is, this is probably the most toughest sport you'll ever see uh, play. Both the players gutted it out. More than that, more than the physical aspect of things, what I saw was a lot of mental fortitude both of them had especially when they were cornered on both attempts. So very quickly, right from the get-go, because I think I pretty much watched every point, and I think it was a privilege to watch this match. Obviously, I was rooting for Alcaraz to win because of the fact that I picked him in the podcast earlier when we did it. But if Sinner had won, that's fine too, because that would have been 4-all, and then bring it on. The battle is on, and then the one thing that was clear was that the last six championships were won by both of them, and so I didn't really care about who actually won the match. It's just came down. I wanted a five setter. And we got a five setter, and it didn't look like a five setter. So let's quickly go down. Even when I looked at the first set, and you were talking about how the quality of tennis, I definitely think the quality improved from the third, fourth, and fifth sets. In the first two sets, what I saw was that the first point itself was a 12. No, the first game was a 12-point game that Sinner barely managed to. Carlos actually had about three break points and we'll get to the actual percentages later. There are some stats I want to throw at you. And Carlos actually, that was the one of the. I think when you look at the first three sets, or the second, yeah, the first two sets at least, Carlos had a 3-2 lead early, but then um, Sinner was, I think both of them were not serving to their potential. They were getting into their second serves, and both of them were able to take advantage of it. At least though Sinner was able to take advantage of it. One thing that Carlos was not able to do on Sinner's second serve was he was hitting the ball over, and he would turn around to his team and then kind of mutter something in Spanish and then say what's going on, and then that's when he started moving back. I mean, in the third set, I mean, that's one of the adjustments he made, and McEnroe even mentioned it, that because he was trying to kind of play closer to the baseline and cut off that weak second serve of Sinner, and he was actually hitting the ball out a lot of enforced errors, but then he started stepping back. And I go, there is a danger with that, right? When you step back too much, Sinner can easily pick his spots, but Carlos was able to hit the ball deep. And after 62 minutes of tennis, it was a very weird way the first set ended to me. It was like a 30-40 point. I was kind of watching this one, and just like that, he had like three unforced errors, Carlos had, and Sinner captured the first set. And when you looked at, even during the first set, I think there was like a brief pause. I think maybe in the second set, he had like one of those clay in the right eye. He had like a physio come out, and it was some discomfort earlier, and he definitely looked disheveled a little bit. And that happened in the second set when um, Sinner carried that momentum going in, broke Carlos Alcaraz early, raced to a 3-0 lead. Actually, he was actually up 5-2, and then Carlos managed to break and dramatically set the scores level at 5-all, and then it went all the way to a very tense tiebreaker, and Sinner won it at 7-4. But Sinner was it was almost like ice cold in that particular tiebreaker. He was so good at that, and he was able to absorb the comeback. I mean, you knew that it was game on, and then Sinner hit this, I think, a rocket forehand to Carlos's forehand, and then won that way. And in this first set, it was more like Carlos making the mistake. Third set was the one where um, Sinner kind of fell back, and Carlos took that lead and went on to 4-1. And then Sinner was trying to come back, but I don't think that was something that Carlos, kind of eked out that win. I think it was out of his comfort zone. Alcaraz was dictating a lot of the points. You could see him definitely kind of move Sinner all the way around, and then, but like I said, the quality of tennis that you saw today, it's just incredible. Like I don't know what to say anymore. It was that kind of a match, and let's get to the fourth and fifth. We'll both do it together. But once it got the when the third set, and Carlos managed to win the third set, the crowd definitely wanted it, and this was the first time. I think this is the first time this tournament someone actually would have taken Sinner to 4 sets. So, Sinner has pretty much rammed through this French Open by winning all matches in straight sets. The only closest one that ever came was Djokovic, where Djokovic actually had 2 set points on one of Sinner's, I think it was the third set. So let's get to the fourth set. This is the one where we want to talk about. You watched it too. And Carlos was down 3-5. Let's pick up right there. And Carlos looking at possibly not winning back to back, and he was love 40 up. It offered Sinner 3 championship points. What did you see on those 3 points?
Yeah, I mean, it's man. Looking back, I'm trying to reflect back on those points. I wish I could watch the replay right now, but from what I recall, I think
I,
Sinner
I
had a couple
remember it.
loose
So
points there, didn't he? He had a forehand down the line. I think he tried to rip at one point, didn't he? That he came up shy.
yeah, the Sinner's forehand went long in the first one.
Yeah,
And then it was interesting because Sinner had a second serve on Alcaraz's, and I think he had a backhand, if I'm not mistaken.
he hit it long.
That went over the baseline.
Yeah,
And and the third one was where Sinner put the ball in the net, right? I think that's when it became deuce, I think. And then um, I think even Carlos later said that. He said Sinner, um, really didn't play great points there. I mean, I think, he just needed 1 point, right? I mean, that was it. And then that escape, it's a psychologically, big advantage, but went down from love 40. Then he won the next 12 out of 13
yeah, he
points,
won 3
and
games in a
he
row.
held us.
Yeah, up 6-5.
Yeah, and then it was flawless, and then it was 5-all, and then the crowd just got into it, and I think the crowd was pro Alcaraz, as we saw. I think you definitely saw that. I think towards the end, when they wanted the fifth set, they definitely, were rooting for both of them, I think. But it's just the icy composure that both of them had. And, once it went to the fifth set, that's when it became all hands. It was great to watch
No, it
that.
looked like I said Sinner was going to just kind of wilt in that fifth set, whether he had a small injury or fatigue. And then, like I said, he was down a break early on. I think I forget if he was down 3-1 or it was an early break. He fell down. And then he just, Carlos held on throughout the set. But then at 5-4 serving, that's when Sinner broke back and went up 6-5, and then I thought I think it's 6-5 when it was 5-6 Alcaraz serving in the fifth set. I think Sinner might have been up 15-30 in that game.
Yes, he
Might
was.
have been
You're
up, so
right.
I thought, oh man, he's going to break him back here. But then Sinner Alcaraz regrouped, and yeah, I'm not sure if that was the game. There was one point on a second serve I remember at a crucial point. Like I said, I don't think it was match point. It might have been at 6-5 in that last set where Sinner took a second serve, just teed off on it on a forehand cross court, and then Alcaraz chased it down and hit a hard slice on full stretch, both legs like doing the splits, hit a slice cross court and deep, and it was a winner, or it was for I think it was a forced error for to win the point. I remember that point. I'm like, are you kidding me? I couldn't believe the shot he hit off that pace that Sinner just blasted a forehand at him in the corner. It was amazing. So many points like that were just, but both are. I mean, it's amazing what kind of athleticism Sinner has too. Like Roddick was saying in his podcast, for a guy who's 6'5" or 6'4", and to be able to do what he does, the way Sinner moves pretty darn well out there. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, I think it came down to, I think maybe it was Roddick who mentioned that as well, when he said that there were like 60 to 70 times he just had to jump off his chair. And that's how many shots. And I think, when we started this podcast, you kind of talked about, when I agree with you 100%, because, this match is fresh in our memory. We're going to say this is one of the greatest to play. I've seen one of the greatest matches they always say is like with the Nadal and Federer that went late into the night
Wimbledon,
in
right?
Wimbledon. And, that was a phenomenal match in itself. I think when I looked at the physical ability both these players showed today, maybe that's what Roddick was referring to when he said the quality of tennis was probably one of the best. And of course, I will probably listen to what Roddick says. He should probably be calling some of these games
Yes.
going forward. He's so good at what he's doing, and the technical details to which they get into is just incredible. Again, going back to this fifth set, Carlos took the early lead, went on a 5-3 lead, and at 5-4 he was serving for the match. And you and I were talking about it, and he said it's the same issue that Sinner had. He could not close him out. And then Sinner takes the 6-5 lead, and you're right, it was 15-30. Alcaraz comes back, ties it at 30 all, hits this beautiful forehand, and then goes into the tiebreaker. And I don't know what happened to the tiebreaker. That was probably one of the greatest, I would say, the first 6 to 7 points that Carlos played. I mean, there was one shot that he hit. It was almost like what we're normally used to seeing our good buddy Hoover hit. It was like almost like
Oh, yes.
you flicked that ball, and
Yes,
you thought,
swinging,
yeah, it
swinging,
was
swinging,
incredible.
swinging volley,
Swinging,
kind of like what Agassi
swinging
used to do
volley,
back in the
yes.
day. The swinging volleys, the forehand. Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah,
Yeah, that was crazy. And then he never gave Sinner any chance to come back. And even the match point that Carlos hit, that was like a great shot. Like it was just running forehand, and then just leaving Sinner just completely. I think I saw a tear in Sinner's eyes for sure. I mean, just like when Federer lost to Nadal in that one of those great matches in Wimbledon. But I don't know. This was probably one of the best matches I've seen Alcaraz play, and I think we've seen every match. And I think the match again, Djokovic and Wimbledon was, I think there was another comeback too. I think when they asked him the post game in TNT, when they asked him where would he rank this, and he immediately said this would rank as one of the best.
yeah. I would love
Well,
to know what
for
the
him.
stats are on. Maybe you've looked at them already. I haven't looked at any
Yes,
stats,
I
but
did.
I'm curious what the stats are on unforced errors of these players. It's got to be ridiculously low. I bet it's the lowest of any final ever that goes 5 sets. I mean, I can't even remember seeing more than 10 unforced errors in those 3.5 sets I watched. Well, I guess I watched 3 sets, but I don't think I saw more than 5 to 10 unforced errors, if that. By any player.
The,
It was crazy.
the only thing I would say was that you and I were talking about it was the number of double faults that Carlos had, and Sinner didn't have any. Sinner only had like 2 double faults the entire
Yeah, I
tournament.
can't believe that stat. That's crazy.
I can't believe that stat. Yes, and you want to know another interesting stat? I think break points wise, they were both 7 for 14, 7 for Alcaraz, and 7 for 15 for Sinner. But this is going to blow your mind. Total points won. Sinner had 193. Alcaraz had 192.
Jeez. So according to Trump, Sinner was the champion then. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Yes,
Popular
of
vote.
course.
Popular vote. Yeah.
By popular vote. Yeah. And I think, yeah. And Sinner also had 8 aces over 7. So the thing, I just couldn't even see this thing. I think what was stunning was the tiebreaker. They both had one, they won one tiebreaker each this match. And if you looked at it, none of these players had less than 4 games won in each of the games. That is just incredible. That tells you how much they pushed each other to the edge in terms of, like, winning this match. And the only thing they said was that on the stat, it was when Sinner had 3 match points, he played another extra an hour and 43 minutes before the match ended.
Wow.
That's almost like another 3-set match that Sinner normally plays against in the second or third round.
Yeah, I think one of the keys also that I saw, I thought like Sinner would win in 4 sets going into this, and I thought the reason why was that Sinner I didn't think would get broken at all. I mean, we all know he got broken, a handful of times. I thought his serve was just too good to be broken, and I didn't think Alcaraz's serve was still at that level where he'd be able to hold sufficiently and adequately enough. And I was impressed by how well he kicked in his second serve, especially to the ad court against Sinner all day. That huge kicker and deep to the backhand, and it often generated I wouldn't say a weak return, a return where then Alcaraz could take that forehand and then just hit a winner across court.
Yep.
So that was a key. His improvement, maybe it's partly due to the surface. This the clay, obviously with the huge kick. We'll see how it translates to future. When they play, if they play together, hopefully we see them again at Wimbledon on the grass, and then the hard courts at Flushing Meadow. So we'll see, but that's his serve really impressed me on his second serve. Second serve points won was a huge thing, I think, for Alcaraz for a key. So yeah.
I was listening to Agassi post game, and they were asking what was Carlos's favorite surface, and he immediately went and said grass may be his favorite surface.
It's hard. Yeah.
And yeah, it's hard.
Hard to
Well,
believe.
he's won back to
No, he's
backs,
won two
right?
Wimbledons there. Why not? Yeah.
Back to back Wimbledons.
Yeah.
Actually, he
Yeah.
won the 2023 and 24. So
Yeah.
he's the defending champion. No, back to back defending champion. So for someone like Agassi to say that Alcaraz's favorite court may be grass, that doesn't bode well for others. But guess what? Now Carlos has got 5, Sinner's got 3. There's a little catch up to do for Sinner. Obviously, both of these players have been in 8 of the 11 finals, I think, and then they won the last 6. Right? I mean, if Sinner had won this would be the 3rd consecutive slam he would have won. It's almost like bordering on like the Djokovic and Vilander actually won like 2, I think, in a row. But even Federer and Nadal won 2 in a row too. But um, I think right now at age 22, I was they had a little stat on which said when you compare Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, um, and then Alcaraz and Sinner, obviously, the fastest to get to 5 at this age of 22, there's only 2 players. Nadal,
Rafa and Alcaraz, right?
Rafa and Alcaraz.
Yeah. Two
And
Spaniards.
yeah,
Yeah.
just 2 Spaniards. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, this what you're watching is generational talent. I think Courier called it the new 2 instead of the big 3. But let's get down to a couple things here. What does this do to Sinner going forward? I mean, he already said that he was going to delete this final from his memory. He said he may not even sleep well tonight. I really felt bad for him, but it's such a demanding final, pushed him to the absolute limit, despite his own physical struggles. Like I said, I mean, he did have some struggles. I mean, I think McEnroe referred to some pickle juice and things like that. Could be some cramps and things like that. But what does it do to him even though he's still world number 1, going into Wimbledon?
I mean, I don't know. It's a good question. I got to imagine that it's yeah, it's gonna be tough to sleep for a couple nights, couple days. I'm sure he's not going to sleep well. It's going to eat at him for a little bit. He's going to have some nightmares about how he might have played those 3 match points differently at in the 4th set at 3-5 love 40. I'm sure he's going to watch. I don't know if he'll watch tape of that or not, but I'm sure his camp will. Cahill. I'm sure he'll be looking at that. But no, it's gonna I think it's gonna light a fire under him. Just I mean, just want to come back and get the he also has not got the a title at Wimbledon yet, so he's going to want to dethrone Carlos, like you mentioned, two-time defending champion. And yeah, I think he's going to come back as motivated as ever. I don't think it's going to put him in any kind of slump or any kind of I don't think it's going to have any negative effect really on him. It's just going to light the fire and really ignite his desire to win the last two Grand Slams of the season. The Wimbledon and the U.S. Open. So, yeah, I mean, I hope we see the two of them play again in the next two finals. It's just going to build a rivalry, much like we had. You could say McEnroe Borg in the late 70s, early 80s, and then you could maybe say Sampras Agassi we had for a little while there.
Then you got Edberg at Becker.
Yeah.
You had the Edberg rivalry. Then you got the big three.
Yeah.
And actually, you should say the big four.
Yeah.
I think
Throw Murray in there.
Murray.
Sure.
You have to throw Murray in there. I mean, if not for these three, Murray would have easily won double-digit majors too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how good he was. I mean, he was so good.
Yeah. So, what do you think about what the effect this is going to have on Sinner? You think it's going to just light the fire, or you think it's going to throw him into a little slump for I don't know, for a little bit?
I think the one thing is that here's the thing. It's not a good comparison, but when the whole thing that happened with the ban and the whole thing that happened with the especially I think it was right during the US Open that whole news came out.
Yeah.
And he went on to win the US Open. And then the one thing, if you look at what Sinner has been through, this is his third I would say tournament he has played all year, pretty much. Right? He played Australian Open,
Yeah.
he played the Rome Open, and he played this
Oh,
one.
right.
So there's only three
Yeah.
ATP, two Grand Slams and one ATP. So yes, it's going to hurt for him, but knowing him and knowing Darren Cahill, I do think that he has the ability to bounce back. I think it'll light a fire for him. I think he's a special breed of a player. Um, he's not, like you said, like you and I watched that Carlos's documentary where both you and I were talking about it, where Carlos really wants to go and party. I mean, he just wants to go and enjoy, jump into the go to have some family time, go and jump into that ocean thing, and then enjoy a little bit, and then that. But I think Sinner is very, very focused on it. He's going to be well prepared to it. I think Alcaraz is the favorite. If you ask me who the favorites are going into Wimbledon, I would put Alcaraz, Sinner, and Djokovic. Those are the three players I'm going to put. We don't know. Like, you know what? A lot of things could happen between now and Wimbledon, but I'm never counting Djokovic. I think he was very close to taking the third set of Sinner, and you don't know what happens after that, right? I mean, you don't know because Djokovic is mentally stronger than any player you've ever seen on the tennis court. So, and I think Carlos is now showing, some kind of I would say shades of what Djokovic has. The mental. It's just like Nadal, right? Nadal, all these guys. It's like the big three, pretty
Yeah, I
much.
just think that as
So
much as I hate to admit it, I just think that, we can just tell by watching Sinner and Alcaraz, they're just, I think at this point, just much better ball strikers than Djokovic. Djokovic, he can maybe make up for it with his tennis IQ and his mental strengths and abilities on the court, to his experience and how to kind of mentally out muscle, if you will, these players. But we're just watching these two players today. It's just, we saw with in the Sinner Djokovic match in the semifinals. Sinner just out hit him. Just flat out hit him. Djokovic tried to go through him, as Roddick would say, you just can't go through Sinner. He just stays inside the baseline, right at the baseline, and just comes back harder with every ball, harder and deeper, and then waits for a one mistake by the opponent and jumps on it. Just like we saw it today. If there was one ball that was just a fraction short, it's gone. It's a winner, and you don't see that with too many other players out there. There's very few other guys that'll take a small little mistake, and be able to put it away like these two did today. It was just a fraction of a ball that was a fraction too short, and it was gone. Bye. So yeah.
the one thing you said about what would do Sinner, there is one other thing I would mention here. When you looked at what the head-to-head comparison right now for Alcaraz and Sinner, it's 8-4, and 8-4 is not a bad stat. What is more important is that the last five his loss to Alcaraz. So forget the fact that he's trying to get over this French Open debacle. I would even say that he has to get over that Alcaraz slump. 0-5 every time he steps on the court. Yeah, that is. Yeah, I don't care whether you're number one or number two.
Yeah.
When you step on the court and you see the player on the other side of the court, that's something that when Federer went and played Nadal, even in clay, even a couple more times, I think he just couldn't overcome Nadal. I mean, Nadal was just simply too good. And that's the same thing that happened when Federer started playing Djokovic. Once Djokovic figured out Federer, it was impossible for Federer to climb over that mountain. I think that's something that Alcaraz may have to do. I mean, I don't know what else he can do. I mean, both these players were making these strokes. I mean, there was one shot that Carlos had, which blew my mind with the backhand flick that he had. I mean, he didn't win that game, but it was on Sinner's serve, but just incredible. I mean, even the drop shots that both of them were hitting were just out of the world. So this is where we are, Dan. Wimbledon is not too far away, by the way. I mean, it's only 3 weeks away. But I do think that we have U.S. Open golf
Yeah,
coming
we'll
up
have to
next
break
week.
that down this week. Yeah,
Yep.
before you know it, it's right
Yep.
here.
And I'm traveling, so we'll have to figure out a time and date to do this thing. We'll figure out a day one of these days, I think. But this is where we are in terms of that. The longest match in France, the second longest Grand Slam. So, any last minute you want to talk about?
Not. I mean, not too much. Just like you said, well, a match for the ages, and looking forward to Wimbledon in about 3 weeks away. That's about it. Nope.
Okay. All right. Great match. I might just go and watch some more of the highlights. I mean, I got to watch it, but when you're watching the match, you just are so much into it. You're living on, dying on each and every point, and each and every point was just a classic. I mean, you had to earn it. Um, and to your point, I mean, I have to go find the stats about the unforced error, but one of the things that even I was talking to my kids, and we were kind of watching it, and I said, you either see more winners and maybe a few shots that kind of sail away, but or into the net, right? I mean, you didn't see many of those, right? Balls do sail away, but you don't see some of these shots, and they usually complete every shot. So that's where we are. And thanks again, Dan. I know it's a long night, but we're able to get this thing done because this was a classic. This would go into the one of the best majors right now. And there's nothing called the greatest, but I think to your point about how hard these two players hit, it should rank up way up there too.
Well,
Thanks
have
again.
a good night.
Have a good night.
Thanks for listening. Primo and Dan will be back soon.